Good morning, everyone. If you can hear me, can you click the raise hand button? If you can hear me, could you just click the button? Okay, awesome. Thank you very much, Anthony Walters. I can see that you have raised your hand. So good morning and welcome to today's webinar, which will focus on exam preparation and study tips. My name is Cleveland Sam, Assistant Registrar responsible for Public Relations at the Caribbean Examinations Council, and I will be your moderator today. With us today to help us better understand the examination preparation tips are Mrs. Margaret Grant, and she's a guidance counselor at the St. Michael's School here in Barbados, and Mr. James Young, an educator, but at this moment he's a measurement and evaluation officer at the Caribbean Examinations Council. I want to remind you, ladies and gentlemen, that in order to speak to us, whether you want to speak using your mic or you want to chat, there is a chat feature where you can type into the chat. It's at the bottom right-hand corner of the webinar menu. And if you want to speak, all you need to do is to raise your hand like Anthony did when I asked about those who were hearing me. You raise your hand and then I would release the mic so that you can speak. I generally would let you know when I'm releasing the mic so that you'll be prepared to speak with us. Also want to know that the hashtag for today's event is hashtag CXC Exam Prep. Once again, hashtag CXC Exam Prep. So you can share that hashtag on your Facebook page, on your Twitter feed, on your websites with persons who you want to follow today's webinar. As I said, my guests are Mrs. Margaret Grant from the St. Michael's School in Barbados, and she's a guidance counselor, and my colleague from CXC, who is a measurement and evaluation officer, Mr. James Young. Good morning, James.
Good morning.
Hello, James.
Sam, and good morning to all.
Yeah. All right, James, Mrs. Grant is running a bit late, so I want to start with you as a measurement and evaluation officer. And I know you are very familiar with these things because you've been a teacher in the past. So students are at this moment getting ready for their examinations, and they're wondering, how am I going to approach these questions when CXC threw them at me? I'm sure they're probably looking at practicing exam past papers at this moment. What should students be looking for as they practice these past papers?
Well, firstly, again, good morning to all. As they practice the examination papers, I would advise students to look at and pay careful attention to the verbs, the terms that are used, and as to what the question is asking. For example, a question may ask you to define, and that's straightforward. That is just giving recall a definition and place it there on the paper. In a case where you are asked to explain, and your number of marks would indicate, in essence, what type of elaboration is expected, but it would not require you to just provide a point and leave it there. It requires you to say the what, the how, or why, giving reasons for whatever the phenomenon, whatever the situation is that is being explored by the question. Furthermore, well, what I want to say at this point, some of these verbs, actually they are at the back of our syllabuses. Most of our syllabuses would have outlined what the word means and what the task is associated with that word is. And so those can be accessed through our store. And if you look at the word, for example, describe. Describe asks for, in the case of, and I would go a little subject specific here, like English and literature, provide a detailed account. and use significant characteristics or traits of the issue in question. So it's a detailed account. It expects some emphasis, and so do not just put a point there. Yes, the points are important, but elaboration on the point is much more important in such a case.
Okay, James, thanks. So that is dealing with something like describe or elaborate. What about, for example, list?
Right. List is a word that just really asks you to itemize the requested information. So there's no need to expand on that. Don't waste time explaining and describing the information. Just state the information there, put them down, and that is accepted. That is what is being looked for. If we ask for something like illustrate, I'll use another example. It means that you need to be able to draw where diagrams are appropriate. You should draw or use the relevant examples that would bring out whatever that question is being asked here. So it goes further than just writing an essay in or some points. In most cases, your illustration would require you to draw something and ensure that your diagram is there, because that would be looked for. Mr. Sam?
Okay, thank you, James. Remember, you can you can raise your hand in order to ask the questions, or you can type in the chat. James, as we move on, another one that comes up very often in exams is compare and contrast.
Yes, that is an interesting one. Oftentimes we find that the candidates only give the similarities when asked to compare and contrast. Let me put the difference here. Compare on its own, if you are asked to compare, you automatically must provide similarities and differences. That is expected. Compare and contrast, similar, right? Both, you need both the similarities and differences in order to provide a comprehensive and acceptable response. If you're asked to contrast, then on its own, contrast just asks for differences, and so similarities will not be awarded. So it has to be clear. If you are asked to compare, similarities as well as differences are necessary. But
okay,
yes, sir.
Okay, thank you very much for that. That's a very good start. Mrs. Margaret Grant has joined us now. As I said, Mrs. Grant is a very, what should I say, informed guidance counselor who has done some work with CXC in the past. In fact, currently, we have a video on our webpage as well as our Facebook page where we did a Let's Talk with Mrs. Grant last week. Mrs. Grant, welcome to this morning's webinar.
Thank you. Good morning.
Right. And that was my colleague, James Young, who opened the innings, and you're going to come in at number 2, but at the number 3 batsman.
Okay, good morning. Are you hearing me?
Yes, they're hearing you.
Oh, thank you.
So I want to give you your initial comments, Ms. Grant.
Okay,
I want
to thank you very much for this opportunity. And I know preparing for exams can be stressful for many parents as well as children, and I'm really pleased this morning to look at techniques more so than anything else. Thank you so much.
All right, go right ahead.
Okay. Okay, when it comes to exams, you recognize that there are certain blocks to success. And one of the first things students have to do is to recognize that there are these blocks. And blocks such as daydreaming, overcompensating to please parents, being pressured to impress. The excessive use of social media is also one of the blocks to success. Feeling overwhelmed and depressed, feeling, then you also have the fixed mindset, where some students, they feel that they can just do X, Y, Z. They're not prepared to face challenges, and they just feel, well, I am at my all, and that's it. They're not encouraged or even empowered to accept challenges. Then you have the ratio of time versus the volume of work to be covered. That can also cause some stress. Okay, so when it comes to preparing for exams, sometimes some children, they're doing all that they can, and then some parents might say, you know what you're doing though? You're doing all this work, and then you may not even come up with anything. So getting the negative feedback is also a block to success. Procrastination, the thief of time. You also have spending more time on things that are totally unrelated to studying, and that is one of the chief culprits as well. So we want to look at all of these this morning in more detail. Negative self-talk is a biggie for many students. They tell themselves a lot of negative things, and therefore that impairs their actual opportunities to really work. Nervousness, a common trigger as well. So we want to look at the mental readiness. Now, some children at this point, they're all anxious and everything, and sometimes a good place to start is to ask for divine intervention and guidance during the preparation time. Asking for clear thinking while taking the test, and the ability to give the answers that please the examiners, because you can write answers, you can finish the test, but if your answers do not please the examiners, then you're still lost. We want the students also to embrace a growth mindset. The growth mindset is all about embracing challenges, reaching for levels of achievement, and you're also inspired by the success of others. You want you to validate yourself, give yourself some positive self-talk. Rather than telling yourself you can't, you may not, tell yourself, you know what, I've been preparing for this exam for a year, for 2 years. I'm going to give it my best, and this will be my personal best. We want to drop off some shackles, avoiding the fixed mindset, ignoring criticism, accepting criticism rather than seeing it as negative feedback. Then you also want to not give up easily. Avoiding and shifting the naysayers, those who would discourage you and tell you that you can't, shift them. At this time, we want to look at your physical alertness as well. In order to be ready for the exams, you must be physically alert. And you can do this by having 20 to 25 minutes of cardio every day. And some good signs of having a good cardio is when your pulse increases and when there's some sweat. Brisk walking, jogging, dancing, all these are things that can help you to build some exercise. And when you build exercise, when you go through that exercise, your body benefits. It increases your energy levels. It also diminishes the effects of stress and anxiety on your body. It boosts that relaxed state of mentality that you really should have. Also, we want to look at the physical alertness through nutrition. We would suggest that you eat some superfoods to increase the brain power. Studying pulls away a lot. It uses a lot of brain energy, and things like nuts, those whole grains, the seeds, flax seeds, chia seeds, pumpkin seeds, walnuts, hazelnuts, almonds, blueberries, fruits, apples, and the dark green leafy vegetables. All those are things that would really help the body. When studying, the brain uses more vitamins, minerals, and you must use water to keep it hydrated. Research has shown that high carb, high fiber, slow digesting foods like oatmeal are especially useful for breakfast on the day of the exam. And we would suggest that you eat small portions of food throughout the day rather than a heavy meal, because it's going to take time for the body to digest that heavy meal. So it's better to keep eating some small portions throughout the day. Now, in terms of time management, this is a biggie. Structure and organization leads to discipline. We would like you to create and follow a study or revision plan to override the need to cram. Some children will say cramming works for me, but really and truly, cramming is a short-term method, and you cannot rest on it. It is not reliable. You need to pace yourself so that every subject is attended to. I know there are some subjects that are more challenging than others, but I would suggest that you spend time on every subject. When you're coming to your challenging subjects, it's best that you work on the challenging subjects first, or even the challenging topics. Work on them first. Every day when you're studying, deal with your challenging subjects or your topics first, and then when you're really energized. At the end, you can then work on your more easy topics. Have a dedicated study area or a set of places to study. And you want to also use the CXC syllabi, the study guides, the teacher's notes, anything that you can find to help you to really get through. There's something called the two-factor model, which is designed by Greg Nicholson from the Achieve Tutoring in Barbados. And this two-factor model, it really helps you to structure in terms of prioritizing. And this will be good for those who tend to procrastinate, who tend to not have any discipline. And it focuses on two factors, urgency and importance. If you would just make a list of all the things, and I'm speaking to students now, make a list of all the things that you have to do, and you're going to put them in these 4 boxes. Box 1, you'll put the things that are important and urgent in there. For example, if you know you have Spanish orals next week, you would then obviously focus on your Spanish. And suppose you're going to be more specific now and saying, well, I want to look at my irregular ER verbs, preterite verbs, or whatever, preterite tense. I want to do that. Be specific in what you're doing. For FNN, you might say, I want to practice preparing a particular dessert that I'm not so keen on, but I have to do it for the exam. And therefore, we want you to be specific. In box 2, you'll put the tasks that are urgent, but not so important. In box 3, you'll put the things that are important, but not urgent. And then in box 4, those things that are neither important nor urgent. Once you do this with everything that surrounds you, not only your studies, but every activity that you have to do on a daily basis or a weekly basis, you'll find that you're able to pace yourself better. Okay, now you need to break up your work. I know for some students, looking at all the work you have to do, all the subjects, it's going to look like a real lot. It is a lot, but we would like you to aim to complete your set tasks in as short a time as possible, so that we're going to break your topics down into smaller chunks. You're going to prioritize those chunks, and then you're going to put those small chunks in the weekly timetable. When you do that, you're able to monitor your time, you're able to pace yourself, you're able to allow yourself 5-minute breaks every 45 minutes or so. Get up and move around, get a little snack, reward yourself, but we want you to be balanced. Do not cut out your recreation and your hobbies. You still need to lead a balanced life. A suggestion of having a designated study area, an area where you have all your textbooks, all your materials are located in this one space, so that you can really have everything accessible to you. The timetable, the exam timetable, this is critical. We will let you to have that posted in about 3 different places at home. Let your parents have one, you have about 2, and then somebody else outside of the house can have another one, because it is critical if you turn up for an exam in the afternoon and the exam was in the morning. Please also have a piece of it, a copy of it in your pencil case. Now, if concentration is a problem for you, look at the surroundings. Make sure you have a desk, a table, a quiet area, proper lighting, proper ventilation. Let the ambiance be conducive to studying. And parents, we would like you to make sure that the setting is clear and ready for your students to study, because it's not every child who can study with noise in the background. We would like you to really recognize that this is a one-time event, an event that the child really wants to succeed in. And we would like you to give them the necessary support in making sure that the ambiance at home is conducive to studying. Developing this habit of studying in the same place at the same time every day would also improve your concentration. There are some people who would say, well, I need to study in different places. I need to change it around. You need to look to see what works best for you. And these are just suggestions, but obviously you will choose the ones that work best for you. Okay? Now, studying for exams, there's something called the focus method. And in this focus method, you're going to focus on the syllabus and the study guide. Open up your text and your notes daily. Become familiar with the content. This is the content that you're going to need in the exam. Condense any notes to form study sheets. And for those students who are visual learners or even kinesthetic learners, this would work well for you because you would need to get it down, write it down, put it in different forms, put it in diagrams, color code it, so that you're able to remember these things and you're learning by association even as you do this. Review the material that you're unsure of and study in a quiet place with a partner, in a group, or even with another peer. When it comes to multiple choice questions, you're going to eliminate the strange, unrelated answers. There's some that are half right, and once it's half right, it can't be totally right. Then you're going to know also the ones with absolute terms, like always and never and all. And usually nothing is ever so absolute. So that is also a cue to you that that may be the wrong one. So you can always look at that as well. Look at the in-between answers with words like often and seldom or probably. Those are usually good choices. Note carefully when questions contain two answers that are completely opposite. Two opposites can be right, so only one can be correct. And if a part of the statement is false, well, then the whole answer is false. Now, note the subject and verb agreement, use of a or an. These can also give you hints as to the choice of the correct answer, depending on the predicate part of the question, of the sentence. Now, sleep is important. At this point, many people will tend to want to go and do all-nighters. You might feel good doing all-nighters. You might cover a lot of it, but really and truly, research has shown that it is not such a good idea. Because there's a study that was done in 2008 by Pamela Thatcher, a professor of psychology at St. Lawrence University, concluded that all-nighters impair your memory and retention skills for as long as 4 days. It takes the body a longer time to recover from an all-nighter than if you were to stop, break, and go again. So please, all-nighters, leave it out. So you can know your biorhythm. Some people work better in the day, better at night. You know your body, so work according to your biorhythm. And then avoid distractions. The cell phone, the iPad, the TV, the newspaper. Avoid these while you're studying. You can use those during your break time. Reward yourself like that. If it's possible, there's some static distractions. If you have the phone near to you, next to you, that can be a distraction, even though it might be off. So move it away, move yourself away from those things that can become static distractions or even the dynamic ones. Now I want to look at problem solving. And this is a one from Greg Nicholson as well. Queen Ruby makes pancakes. It's a 4-step to problem solving. The first thing, before you jump into answering a question, ask yourself, what is this question really asking me to do? The second thing you ask, what is the relevant information given in this question? The third thing, what is the missing information? What missing information do I need? And the P, what process do I use? And especially in maths, do I add, do I subtract? What process do I use? And let's look at a sample. A family was on holiday. On the first day, they spent $55. On the second day, they spent twice as much as they did on the first day. And they continue spending twice as much each day. How much did they spend after 5 days? Now, some people might say, but I don't know maths. But if you use the 4-step method, it might help. How much money is spent in 5 days, after 5 days? That is the question. Despite all the writing, the point is, the question is, how much money is spent after 5 days? The second one, the amount spent. Look at the relevant information that has been given. They've given you the amount that has been spent on the first day. And once you have done that, then you can work out the amount that has been spent on the other days because it has been doubled. And then in day 2, Day 2, you know, day 2 is 10. So therefore, day 3 will be 20. Day 4 will be 40, and it continues like that. And then day 5 will be 80. And then the last thing down, the P, which will be process, you add up all of them and you get your final result. So therefore, Queen Ruby makes pancakes really make it easy for you as a 4-step to problem solving. The power lies in the question, and I would suggest that you can master exams and much more by training your brain to identify the important words in questions. When you come to a question, you highlight the keywords in the question. You can use color, you can circle it, you can underline it. But things like define and explain, those that you mentioned in the previous presentation, please look carefully at those words. Look at the marks allotted also as a guide. We also have the forgetting curve. The forgetting curve is a graph that illustrates how we forget information over time. And it is said that new material needs to be reviewed as soon as you get it. And hence, revision is critical. The more you revise, the more you review the work, the least you forget it. Now, cramming is a no-no. Information only goes to your short-term memory, and you need to keep retaining it. So cramming does not help with retention. But committing it to long-term memory, where you have to actually spend time reviewing it constantly, that is the one that we would suggest. Now, I want to look at mnemonics. Mnemonics is a method that helps you to remember. You can actually create a jingle to it. You can create a funny rhyme, rhythm. So it is really a method that you use to help you remember, to recall information, such as names, dates, facts, or figures. It's a memory technique that helps the brain to encode or take in information. And then when you're ready, you're able to retrieve it. Now, there are some that we know, like the Every Good Boy Deserves Food, the Roy G. Biv, which is the spectrum of colors in the rainbow, the RICE for instructions for treating a sprain, rest the injured area, ice the sprain, compress with a bandage, and elevate the injured area, RICE. Then 30 Days of September, the rhyme that we know so well from primary school, which tells us about the number of days in each calendar month. So these are what we call mnemonics. The face is face, the one to remember the order of notes in the spaces of the staff. Bodmas, that most people know. And then homes for the Great Lakes, like Lake Huron, Lake Ontario, Lake Michigan, Lake Erie, Lake Superior. Now you can use mnemonics and you create the mnemonics. So once you create it, you are going to do it in a way that will help you to remember. Okay? Then we have mind mapping. Mind mapping is another technique that can be used very effectively during revision before exams. So what we will get you to do, you get a blank piece of paper, whatever topic you're revising, you're going to draw a circle and put that word in the middle. Like in the one here on the screen, you had health. And then what you're going to do is from that circle, that word in the middle, you're going to then build branches. You're going to actually build like a web so that you are actually putting it in graphic form so that all the words, all the text that you know, you're actually going to put it in graphic form. And you can actually branch it off in different webs so that you're able to get to understand what you know and what you need to know. When you can put graphics, and for those who are visual, those who are kinesthetic, this is a great help. Again, you use color to make sure that it gets, you remember the color. You're actually training the brain to remember through association. So it's one of the best ways to capture your thoughts and bring them to life visually, and they become more, you become more creative and helps you to solve problems as well.
Mrs. Grant, could you just pause a minute? I have a few hands up. Let me just see if anybody want to ask a question. Anthony Walters, I'm going to open the mic for you. Can you go ahead? Anthony Walters. Anthony, I think you have your mic muted. I have unmute your mic. Yes, go ahead, Anthony.
Yes, good morning.
Good morning, welcome.
Yes, thank you. Well, this is the first time on a webinar, sorry, and I really appreciate the time put out to have all of us to be taught about certain things. But at the moment, because of the difference in accent, can you speak a bit slower for me, please? Slow, because the accent, well, the Belgian accent is not something I'm used to. Okay, and I'm all the way out here in St. Kitts, and I really am enjoying the topics or the teachings. So I really want to grasp these things. So can you slow down your speech a bit for me, please? And thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Walters, and I do appreciate your point. I'm sure Mrs. Grant have heard you, and she will oblige, right? Thank you very much. Mrs. Grant, there was one other hand up. Let me see if he or she still, yes. There's a Pemberton also. I suspect that he or she is also from St. Kitts. Iniqua Pemberton, are you there? I see your hand is up. You also have your mic self-music. What about Janelle Smithen? Okay, Miss Pemberton, go ahead.
Okay. Okay, I'm very sorry that you might have missed some, but I'll try to slow down as well. Sorry about that. Now, study groups. This is another technique that can be used very effectively. Sometimes some persons tend to think that they want to run from study groups, but you have the power to choose the members of your group. You would only need to put persons, obviously, who are committed, who are dedicated, and who are interested in what is being done. So when it comes to study groups, you can select 2 or 3 other persons. The group doesn't need to be more than 5. 4 persons, 3 persons, that's good. And in the study groups, you're going to actually be organized. You're going to structure it in such a way that you can come together and you can prepare questions. So when you prepare the question, all 3 of you can prepare the question, and then you come together and pull your answers together. And you will find here is where iron will be sharpening iron, because you will find that what one person might have missed, the other person would have picked up on. And this is where peer tutoring really comes in pretty handy. Okay. Then you can also do some mini tests, and parents, you can also get involved in this, where you can actually test your children. Give them mini tests, and don't be too hard on them if they don't know. It is better for them to fail your test than to fail the actual exam. And remember, when you fail, you have learned something. You have learned what is wrong, what is not acceptable. And once you get the correct answer, then you're good to go. Then past papers. It is important to look at past papers. Look at past papers to see how the exam is being structured, how the marks are being distributed. And it really gives you an idea of what the examiner is like. Looking at model questions as well, model answers, that also helps you to recognize that this is something that the examiners would really show you the standard that they expect of you. Looking at the syllabus as well, you're going to follow the syllabi as outlined, and any area that you're not sure of, please contact your teachers. The teachers are still there. They can guide you. Any areas that you do not feel comfortable with, you still have time to ask the teacher a question. Okay. And then you read the summaries. When you're taking out your textbooks, look at the summaries. Read the summaries first, because the thing is, the summaries would have in the pertinent points, and you want to highlight, you want to commit those things to memory as well as understanding. You don't just want to learn by rote, but you want to understand. Now, when it comes to study groups, as you go into study groups, you're going to be discussing. And I always tell my students, if you can't speak it, you're going to find it very difficult to write it. So going to study groups, don't be ashamed, don't be bashful. Get in there, This is where you learn your confidence, learn what you know and what you need to know. Okay? Flashcards. As simple as this might look, flashcards is another technique that can be used. Now, flashcards, they come in different sizes, and therefore you can choose the one that you prefer. Using flashcards, they can either be white, lined, plain, or they can be colored. This is where now you can color code your work. So when it comes to flashcards, you're going to use them in such a way that you are going to put maybe the question on one side, and then you're going to put the answer on the other side. So when you're sitting in the bus, you're traveling in the car, you're someplace where you don't want to travel with your big textbooks, flashcards, you just pull them out and there you are. You can look at the question, look at the answer, and then you can actually visualize it in your mind, and then you can speak it, recite it, you can, and this is good for definitions as well. Now, the actual exam. And on the day of the exam, some people really get nervous. No matter how prepared you are, you're still going to feel nervous, and that is a normal, natural feeling. So you go to the exam and you are going in there to do your personal best. Even if it's your most challenging subject, you're going in there to do your personal best. So when you go to take the exam, first thing, have a healthy breakfast. Do not eat anything that you're not accustomed eating, because it may have a negative reaction on your body, and then you don't want to have a stomach problem during the exam. So eat things that you're accustomed eating, and I will hope that by now that you're eating healthy breakfast, like your oatmeal. And with the oatmeal, you can just put some seeds in it, pumpkin seeds, sunflower seeds, chia seeds, flax seeds. You can also slice your banana and put on it, slice your grapes, slice your apple. And when you use that, you would find that that keeps you, because the oatmeal is high fiber. It is a slow digesting food, and therefore you'll find that throughout the exam, it will last you, okay? Arrive early so you don't feel rushed. Yeah, some people, you don't want to be rushed for the exam. The exam alone is enough pressure. Preparing for it was enough pressure. So you don't want to be rushed. You want to get there early so you can sit, you can breathe, you can inhale, you can exhale, you can do your breathing exercises, and therefore you can go into the exam room feeling good. You should also have some water.
Miss, could you hold 1 second for me?
Sure, no problem.
Miss Gail, I'm opening your mic. Can you go ahead and ask your question? Kendra Gail, can you go ahead and ask your question? All right, it seems as if Miss Gail might be away from us for the moment, so you can continue, Mrs. Grant.
Okay, so you're going to arrive to the exam on time. You're going to scan the entire test first. It is important. Scan the entire test, because a question that comes up at number 20 might give you a little clue, might jog your memory for something that is in number 3. Okay, so scan the entire question, and you can start, as you read the questions, start jotting down information as it comes, points as they come to you. So because you want to get the information out, so you start jotting down the points next to the question. So by the time you get back there, you will not have forgotten it. Make sure all the pages are there, and the invigilator will make sure that that is done. And then you can budget your time. Please budget your time and allow for enough time to go over, to review. Sometimes some children get, if you don't know a question, if you get stumped, it's always good to just pause, answer all the easy ones first, obviously. And once you have time, you pause, and then you just settle yourself and you go back to it. Be sure you understand what the examiner is asking for. That's critical. They're not asking you how much you know. They're asking you to answer the question. Give them what you know based on the question that is asked. And most importantly, remain calm. Panicking only leads to mistakes. And you don't want that. You want to be able to concentrate so that you can calmly retrieve all the information that is necessary.
Ms. Grant,
yes,
Angela Reed is asking a question in the chat. She wants to know if there's an alternative for flashcards.
Well, if you don't have the commercial flashcards, you can make your own. Some people use post-it notes as well, but those are small. Okay, but the people call them index cards as well, and you can make your own cards. You know, if you get any type of paper card, because the card will stand up, you can get bristle board, you can cut it up in different sizes and you can use that. But if you don't have the commercial index cards, you can create your own, but the same concept is what I'm looking at. Hope that helps.
Go ahead, Ms. Grant.
Okay, good. Now, note the marks allotted to each question, and that also gives you an idea as to how much to go into detail, how much detail to go into. So capitalize on every mark and every minute. Every mark counts. And I want students to recognize that when you start an exam, you're actually starting with 100%. You're starting with 100%. Look around in the room. Everybody here is starting with 100%. And you must ask yourself, am I going to give away my marks? No. Be selfish. Keep your marks. So you're going to capitalize on every mark. You're going to make sure that your mistakes are to a minimum. And for example, look at this question. Decode the question. If the examiner asks, list 2 characteristics of living things and state 2 living things. Okay, mention 2 living things. What they're asking for here. Some people might only see 2 and they write down 2 characteristics of living things and go on to the next question. They're actually asking for 4 things here. 2 characteristics of living things and name 2 living things. Okay, so please, and when you look at the marks, it might be 4 marks given. So you do not need to go into any detail explaining these things. Just list them, but because it would mean then that is 1 mark per answer. So please be careful. Now, studying with music. There are some people who say, I cannot study without music. But you're not going to look for soca or reggae to study too, and your favorite songs, because you will tend to find that while the music is playing, you are listening and enjoying the music, and therefore that becomes foremost, and the studying is set on the back burner. So if you have to listen to music, choose the right type of music so that productivity level will be high overall. Listening to music can calm you down, yes. It can help you to be more conscientious in your studying. It can calm and relax your mood. It can motivate you to stay focused and study for longer periods of time. But at the same time, you do not go and choose the hottest hits. You're going to choose your playlist. You're actually going to select your playlist ahead of time. And the playlist can even act as a time to, you can have it in such a way that if you have 6, 10, 15 songs on it, it can be done in such a way that when that playlist is finished, that is the time for you to break. Okay, so you can have it timed in such a way. So never underestimate the power of classical. Classical music is peaceful. It can calm you. Yeah, and your mood, you'll find that your mood, it creates a more serene study environment, and you're able to focus more. Okay, so you can check out back and see some of the products that he has there and really listen to it. And I'm sure it will help to increase your productivity. It will also help to enhance your mood. Nature sounds like we can have soundtracks with waterfalls, the sound of the seashore, the waves breaking. These are able to, even birds chirping, anything that is of nature, it would help to keep your concentration levels at a high, and it helps you engage at a more subconscious level. The volume.
Could you pause 1 second for me again?
No problem.
I think
no problem.
Indra Gale is back. Miss Gale, I'm trying to unmute your mic. Can you unmute yourself and tell us your question? Are you there, Miss Gale? No? Okay, I guess we'll continue then, Mrs. Grant.
Okay. The volume. Make sure your background music is indeed in the background. And it is not distracting you or any of the people around you. Okay. Sometimes some people have on headphones and you can actually hear everything. That is when the background music is really too much. And students, you're not fooling anybody by pretending that you're sitting down doing work when you're just listening to your music. You're not fooling anybody when you have on your music and you're claiming that you can't study without music when all you're doing is enjoying your music. You're only fooling yourself. If you know that you cannot study with music, if you have trained yourself to believe that you cannot study with music, select music that is conducive to enhancing your concentration. This is no time to be fooling around. This is no time to be playing tricks or trying to deceive anybody. Your parents are only trying to get the best out of you. Okay? And the bottom line, know what works for you. Whatever you're listening to should not distract you.
Miss Gail, go ahead, please.
Okay.
Okay. Good morning.
Yes, good morning.
We hear you loud and clear.
Okay. Question. I'm listening to the webinar and it seems that it's supposed to be for students, not teachers. But you guys are making some very good points. I'm wondering, is there any way I could get a copy of the webinar so my students could listen to it?
Okay, so the webinar is mainly for students, and of course, if teachers are interested in passing on the information, that is fine as well. The webinar will be posted on the CXC Facebook page as well as the CXC website on Monday, the recording. So your students can access it there, either on the CXC Facebook page or on the website on Monday, okay?
Okay, thanks very much.
You're most welcome. Go ahead, Ms. Grant.
Go ahead, yes. Okay. So for students, whatever you're listening to shouldn't distract you, but it should really help you and put your mind into a study mode so that you can be productive and retain as much information as possible. Okay, and at this point, I would pause at this time because I have given you most of the information that I had.
Okay, excellent job as usual, Mrs. Grant. I have Maxine Ramirez. Can you go ahead, Maxine?
Oh, sorry. I just wanted to share that it is excellent information you're sharing, and I will share with my students.
Okay, you're listening to us from Belize, is it?
Yes, yes. Excellent information.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
We're very happy that you find that it is useful, and as you said, hope that you share it with your students because the exams are just weeks away.
Yes, hope it helps, but it sure will.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome as well.
All right, both panelists, thank you so much for the information you have provided. Listeners, it is now your opportunity to ask questions or you can also make comments. As I said, you can ask the questions by putting your hand up in the chat, or you can type your question in the chat and I will relay the question to the panelists. In the meantime, until we have another question, Mrs. Grant.
Yes.
You made some excellent points with respect to examination day and the day before the exam. But at this point, the exam is 2 weeks away for some persons. Next week is orals for others. And what should students be doing at this point, 2 weeks away from the exam? What exactly should they be doing in terms of their preparation?
At this time, I would think that students have a revision plan. And if they haven't had one, well, I mean, they still have time. Because if you do not have a revision plan, you're going to find yourself all over the place. You need to be organized at this time. You need structure. You need discipline. You cannot study now when you feel like studying. You cannot study what you feel like studying. You have to study all the subjects. And if people can be more controlled, more disciplined in what they're going to do, but then you'll find that time management becomes the issue. And when we talk about time management, we're talking about having time to do the things, or rather making time to do the things that you have to do, so that you'll have time to do the things that you want to do. And that is why it's so important to have put in place the two-factor model. What is urgent? What is important? And if they can just use that, they'll get to realize that they don't have to forget their chores. They can still do their chores. They can still walk the dog. They can still mow the lawn. They can still do all those things, play cricket, basketball, netball, whatever. But they still need to focus on their work. So at this time, I will recommend a study schedule. If they don't have one, they can check with their teachers. They can check with the guidance counselor. They can even email me, and I would work with them on that. And because it is important that structure is really in place. Then they need to have a few friends that they can actually study with. If you know that you don't have the motivation, you might be able to work with somebody. When you go into a group and you know that you have to produce, that is also a motivator. If you find that you are not eating, not sleeping, speak to your parents about it, because that can also happen. So they need to be eating properly at this time. No junk food. Come on, it is time to nourish your brain, because you're going to be drawing on it more and more. You're going to be studying more, pushing it even harder than normal, and therefore you need to nourish your brain. And that's why I really would suggest that they look at these superfoods, look at the antioxidants, look at, and we're not looking at things to make a quick fix. We want you to be, instead of just trying to get a belly full, you're actually feeding your brain, you're feeding your cells, you're giving it the brain power that is necessary. So your vitamins, your minerals, your water, all of these things are important. And that is why it's so important that you have that balanced diet. You have the cereal, the whole grains, you have your fruits, you have your dark green leafy vegetables, and your water. You must hydrate constantly.
Thank you very much. I have two more questions. One, I'm going to answer myself. That question is, why am I not able to get past papers online? So to that listener, I would say past papers are in fact available online. If you go to the CXC store, www.cxc-store.com, the past papers are available. I think they're about $8 or $9 for a booklet. So past papers are available online. I don't know if James Young or Mrs. Grant want to take this one, but the student says, good morning. I have headaches if I study for over half an hour and sometimes. Are there any tips for how I could study effectively otherwise? Ms. Grant, I'm sure you get these all the time at the St. Michael's School.
It is important. Well, when you talk about headaches, you have to ask about nutrition, diet. What are you eating? How are you feeding the brain? Because if the brain is not hydrated, then you're going to get pain. Okay? If you have a headache and you drink water, you'll find that if that's a normal headache, it goes. Okay? Just water. Sometimes the brain is crying out for nutrients. Water can help. But again, look at are you exercising? Because when you exercise, you're actually helping the brain. You're helping yourself to relax. You might be tensing up yourself so much, so anxious that, your body is just crying out. So one, I would ask the person to look at what they're eating. And if you need to change your diet, you might need to look at your superfoods. Some walnuts, pistachios, all those nuts that have in omega-3s. That's what the brain needs right now. It needs some foods that will help calm it. Even turmeric, it needs those kind of foods. It doesn't need the buster and the sweet drinks and all the sugar. Right now, high carb, high fiber foods, the slowly digesting foods, and your water, and you exercise. And you might find that also not telling yourself negative things either. If you're telling yourself, I can't do it, I've been feeling this, that I can fail. If you tell yourself those negative things, that can also cause anxiety. So it may be a case of anxiety more so than anything else, a case of not eating properly, a case of not exercising, a case of just becoming too uptight about the exams. Okay, because when you, and also how organized are you? If you go before your books and you don't know exactly how to attack the work, everything is going to come down on you like a flood, and then you feel overwhelmed. So the important thing to do is to break down your subjects in small chunks. If you're studying, say, the family, break it down, the different types of family. So rather than say, I'm going to study social studies tonight, decide which topic am I going to study tonight. So tonight it might be the family. Tomorrow night it might be something else. Okay, but break it down, and this is where the weekly timetable is so important. Every week you do a different timetable in terms of the subjects that you're going to do, in terms of the topics that you're going to do. So as I said before, organization and structure lead to discipline, and this is also in terms of what you eat, how you exercise, how you approach your work, the mindset that you have.
I have a similar question again. I am nervous about exams already. This happens to me once before. Anytime I'm taking an examination, how do I stay calm and relaxed during an exam? I think this happens to quite a few people when it comes to exams generally. So I don't know if you have any advice or tips in terms of staying calm during the exam.
Well, one of the things you have to do though is to stay away from people who are negative, because you don't want any negative energy. Okay, prepare well. Preparation is the key, and you have heard about the 4 P's. Proper planning prevents problems. So if you have not been properly prepared, you will feel nervous. Even sometimes when you are very well prepared, you feel nervous. But exams, there is a mystery about exams, and therefore you don't know what is coming. You don't know how the questions, so you go into an exam with this anxiety, yeah, this mystery about it. You don't know if you're ready. You've been studying all along, you're prepared, but because of that mystique about it, that alone freaks you out. So the important thing is to be as relaxed as possible. Go to the beach, walk on the beach, let those negative ions get into and captivate your person. Okay, and you will find that the more relaxed you are, the better you will be. But keeping calm during tests, preparation is important. You might hear people.
Sorry, go ahead.
You go on. You go on.
Right. I have another question. I have an exam in the next few weeks. Is it too late to start studying, and how long should I study for in a day?
It's not too late, but if you wait till tomorrow, it will start becoming too late. Exam in the next few weeks. Now is the time to actually look at the syllabus, look at the topics, and start scheduling. Create your weekly timetable where every day you do some work, you knock off some topic. Start with the most challenging topics first. Okay, you know which topics are challenging, you know which ones you feel comfortable with. So you're going to start with the most challenging one, because the more you do, the further away from the exam you do the most challenging topics, the more time you have to review it. And I would have mentioned the forgetting curve. We tend to forget things like 24 hours after we learn it. And if you do not keep reviewing, you'll find that forgetting curve dips, and eventually you forget it. But once you start to review it within the next hour, as soon as you get it, you keep reviewing it, you keep going over it, you will find that you have less of a challenge in retrieving that information, and you go into that exam more relaxed, more knowledgeable. Okay, so with the exam in a few weeks, start now. As soon as this webinar is finished, start creating your timetable. Look at the topics that are challenging, and make a list of the ones that are challenging and the ones that you feel comfortable with, and you're going to put them in a slot on that timetable, so that you're going to spend, say, 45 minutes on each topic per day. So you can have about maybe 3 slots of 45 minutes where you're actually working on the topic. And this is where now you also get your flashcards out and you start creating some flashcards. Do some mini tests, ask yourself some questions, get someone to ask you some questions as well. If you know somebody who's doing the same exam, team up with them and work together. Okay, where you can actually get some past exam papers, look at them, start writing some model, some questions, some answers. You can get your teacher now to look at the questions that you have answered, especially for the most challenging topics. Get your teacher to look at it to show you if you're on the right path, if you've attacked it, if you've attacked the question correctly, etc. Okay.
Okay, thank you very much. There's a similar question. I think you answered it in that response. That was, well, for the weekly timetable, should each day be a different topic or each week be a different topic? I think you mentioned that they can just determine which topics they can study each day.
Yes, it depends on what they want to think. But if it is challenging, then if it's a challenging topic, well, then they can do it as often as possible and get tested on it as well.
Okay. All right, remember you can ask your questions in the chat or you can raise your hand and we will unmute your mic. I see Miss Gail hand is up once more. Miss Gail, are you there? No. Miss Ramirez, did you put back up your hand or was that from a previous hand being up? Okay, Miss Gail, go ahead. Miss Gail, go ahead. Your mic is open. Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah.
That was a
Can you hear me?
Miss, yes, I'm not sure. Yeah, I think it's Miss Ramirez who is speaking. So, Miss Gail, are you gonna speak? Let Miss Gail speak first, Miss Ramirez. Just give her 1 minute.
Okay. Yeah. I'm calling from Belize now. And I just like to say you guys are making some really good points, and I would really appreciate the copy of the webinar, because I find out that especially my students, some of them, they don't tend to take the notes that we give to them when we tell them prepare for your exam. Some of the same points that you guys are making are some of the same points that we give to them. So I think that by hearing it from someone else, it might actually sink in and they might actually do what you're suggesting, no?
Okay.
That is so
As I said, we're going to make the webinar available online from Monday. It's going to be on the CXC Facebook page as well as on cxc.org. So you can point your students to.
Thanks, guys.
All right. So that was Miss Ramirez. Miss Gail, you can go ahead now.
I was just going to say I wasn't raising my hand.
Oh, okay. All right. I see Mr. Walter is back. Mr. Walters, go ahead, please. Mr. Walter, Anthony Walter, go ahead.
Yes. Good afternoon again.
Yes, go ahead.
Good afternoon.
Yes, good afternoon.
These questions are for Mr. Young. In the beginning, he started out stating some things like what to look for, and instead of just comparing and not contrasting, just comparing and leaving off the contrast. Could you just go over that again for me, please? Because that was a real serious topic to me, something to really remember. So yeah, can you go over that for me again, please? Thank you.
James?
Sure, no problem. Yes, some of it I know Mrs. Grant would have spoken about the words and the terms, and we were talking about compare. Oftentimes, when we see it when we're marking these scripts, we ask for compare. Students or candidates provide only similarities, and forget that compare requires both similarities and differences. If we ask you to compare and contrast, you're asking for the same thing, to provide the similarities as well as differences. But if we ask for contrast, contrast means we're only seeking the differences and not the similarities. So credit will not be given to similarities in a case where we ask you to contrast two things, or what happens between two things. It must only be the differences, and that could save you a lot of time once you understand that that is what is required. I hope that that was clear enough.
Thank you, James. Mrs. Grant, I have a request for you to repeat what were the 4 Ps.
Oh, there I had a proper planning prevents problems.
All right, there you go. Listener, proper planning prevents problem.
Yes, I think that's Stephen Covey's.
Okay.
Covey's books, you'll see that there.
All right. All right, do we have any other questions or comments?
Mimi?
No, I'm speaking to the listeners. I'm looking through the questions to ensure that we have answered all of them as well. Yes, Ms. Winter, the webinar will be posted on the CXC Facebook page as well as the CXC website, cxc.org. And is it okay to study one subject for one whole week? How do the panelists feel about that?
I would say, go on, you go on.
Sorry, I was just going to say only if that's the only subject you're doing per se, but it depends on the timing from our perspective. How far away the examination is, that may work. But Mrs. Grant?
Yes, I would say no, because again, if it is the only subject you're doing, yes, you can spend all the time on it. But at the same time, if you're say doing 7 or 8 other subjects, and you're not going to have an exam just for 1 week, an exam each week. And even so, it is important to keep all the subjects focused on all the subjects. So the subjects, as I said, those that are most challenging, I would say those are the ones that you spend more time on. So if you have your weekly timetable in place, you might be able to study that subject 3 times a week, as against 2 for another subject. What I would recommend really is that for every week, you study all the subjects that you're doing. So if you're doing 8 subjects, when I look at your weekly timetable, I should see a slot or more than 1 slot for all 8 subjects.
Right.
The challenging subjects, I would expect to see more than 1 slot, because the weaker your subject is, the more time you have to devote to it. And if a subject is strong, well, then you can only make it stronger by reinforcing what you know. And constant review. Remember, the forgetting curve is real. It is real. So the only way we can circumvent the forgetting curve is by constant reviewing. So the more reviewing you do, the better you remember and understand the work. Okay, so you can also vary what you do. You don't have to study on your own. Again, peer tutoring work, study groups work, flashcards work, the Mnemonics work, the Mon Mapping work. So you can use different methods. Okay, so for some people, they get the post-it notes, and you can write certain like terms on it and just post it in your room or wherever. And that will be a way when you see that word, you give the definition, or you have the definition there, and as you pass by, you see it. When you go into the exam room, your mind is going to go right back to that place, and it's going to come right back to you. So learning by association is also important. okay? But I would really suggest that you devote time to all of your subjects rather than just one.
I'm going to have 3 more minutes, and I'm going to ask 2 questions. James, the first question is to you. What resources are there available to assist the students with their preparation at this point that CXC may have or that they can access?
Well, the students can access syllabuses online in the CXC store to ensure that they can see what the topics are, as Mrs. Grant would have indicated, what the objectives are, and they can follow that there. So the past papers as well are in the CXC store for, you know, that one is at a cost that they can purchase and practice. When you download the syllabuses, you would get the subject reports as well that can be used in conjunction with these past papers to provide some guidance as to, you know, what are the common mistakes, the common errors, and what should have been done, so as to, you know, improve your own selves in being able to respond to the questions. And all of this can be found in the CXC store online.
All right. And of course, there's notesmaster.com that you can also access and get your study notes from the various subjects for both CAPE and CSEC at notesmaster.com. Ms. Grant, the final question to you really is about the use of technology. We know that students have WhatsApp group, they have Facebook groups, they have FaceTime, they have Skype. How should students be using the technology in this day and age to help with their preparation for the examinations?
Again, this is so easy because, I mean, it is so accessible to many of them where a physical presence might not be always possible, but if they can create WhatsApp groups to study, dedicated for study, or even like sharing information, again, that's an excellent idea. That's the truth. Because with the WhatsApp group or FaceTime, whatever method they want to use, this is a good way to get information out. Okay, and if they use it just for that purpose, I can see a lot of back and forth, and you know, they can actually like critique each other, they can add on to each other, and they will be reinforced. Each one will be reinforced. So again, if you're in a WhatsApp group, participate. There are some people who are in WhatsApp groups and you only know they're there because you see their name. They haven't exited the group. If you're in a WhatsApp group, don't be like a sponge. There are some people who are like sponges, yeah? They don't want to give out anything, but they soak up everything. And there are some people who feel that when I share my knowledge with others, it's taken away. But really and truly, when you're selfish with your knowledge, it doesn't go any further than you. And you might find that the more you share it, the more strengthened you are. You're strengthening somebody else, and you're also strengthening yourself. So yes, use the technology as much as possible in this way, because it would definitely enhance your study skills and your confidence as well.
All right, I'm going to give you guys 1 minute to wrap up with your parting words. James, you can go first.
Yes, I just want to wish the students and even the teachers all the best in the examinations. Preparation is key. Please do pay attention to the instructions in the examinations and write in the appropriate spaces. I just want to say that we do provide extra spaces in our booklets, and if the space for the question is, if you have used up all the space allotted for the question, when you go to the extra space, remember to put the question number that you're writing there, as we do look there for the responses to mark them and to provide the appropriate score. So just pay attention to the instructions in the examination, prepare well, and all the best. Thank you.
All right, Mrs. Grant.
Okay, one word I would say about multiple choice questions. Sometimes when students have multiple choice questions, they say, oh, it's just multiple choice, I don't have to study, and they might take a break the night before. But I would like to suggest that when you have multiple choice questions, you treat them as exams that are even more intense than the long paper, because With the long paper, you can write around the question and you can, you know, explain yourself away and still get the mark, maybe. But when it comes to multiple choice, it is hit or miss. You have to know the facts. You have to know the content. So the thing is, when it comes to multiple choice, I would like students to develop a more serious approach to multiple choice, recognizing that you have to know the information. You have to be able to decipher which one is the wrong answer. You have to be able to look to see the little cues in there that would help you. And when it comes to multiple choice, read all the questions because, as I said before, there's something that's going to jog your memory and bring back some information to you. So students, I want to wish you really well as you approach these exams. Remember, it is like a marathon that you've been preparing for. I want you to, just like athletes go and do their personal best, their break records, I want each of you to go to these exams to do your personal best. Forget the pressure. You know, you can pray, you can ask God to guide you. All now He knows exactly what's coming on those papers. And once you ask Him to show you what to study, He can show you what to study. So when you go into those exam rooms, you will see everything that you studied and everything will come back to you. Okay? So don't panic. It is just an exam that you know how to pass. And once you prepare yourself, once you follow these suggestions that we've given, as well as the suggestions that your teachers have given you, please, you will do well. But if you have any doubts at all, if you're not clear about any topics, please find your teachers. They will definitely devote some time to help you.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Margaret Grant and Mr. James Young. Mrs. Grant, of course, is the guidance counselor at the St. Michael's School here in Barbados. Mr. James Young, Measurement and Evaluation Officer at the Caribbean Examinations Council. And thank you for joining us. We had people joining us all the way from Belize in the west to Barbados in the east, Jamaica, Turks and Caicos in the north, right down to Guyana in the south. My name is Cleveland Sam on behalf of the Caribbean Examinations Council. We want to thank you very much for joining us this Saturday morning going into afternoon. Remember, when you share the webinar, you should use the hashtag CXC Exam Prep, and the webinar will be posted on Monday on the CXC Facebook page as well as cxc.org. Have a good weekend. Until next time. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.